I want to take you all on a journey. Close your eyes for a second. Picture a superhero. What do you see? What comes to your mind's eye when you picture a superhero? Is it the costume? Maybe you hear a theme song. Or is it that superpower? What is it that comes to your mind when you picture a superhero? Now, hold on to that thought and open your eyes. Tony, what do you see?
Batman. You know, when I was growing up in South Central Los Angeles, in a community that had poverty and complexity that was going on with it, I often wondered if we had a superhero that could come into our community, into our neighborhood, that had experience in a lot of different ways and had a lot of tools on their tool belts to solve the complexities of the neighborhood that I grew up in. So I wanted to be Batman. It also helps when your last name is Bats, too, so that kind of goes along with it. But I did have that opportunity. I did grow up to become a superhero. I became a police officer. And eventually, I became a chief of police of 3 major organizations in the United States. So I got that opportunity. How about you, Eric?
You know, growing up, I was really concerned that I wasn't going to be given the opportunity to help people the way that I wanted to. As an openly gay man, I worried that people would judge me for me before they got a chance to see what I could do. And so naturally, I was drawn to Iron Man. Here's a guy who's using his intellect and his abilities. You know, he doesn't have superhero powers from Krypton or anything like that. He's just him, and he's using his powers to help people. But he's cloaked in a suit of iron and armor. I found my suit of iron. I became a police officer, and I rose to the rank of captain in one of the largest police departments in the nation. I hope I got to help people, and I hope I was a superhero for some. You think we're alone in that?
No. You know, I think in our communities, we have tapestry where we have police officers that are part of those communities. Now, you call them police officers. I call them heroes. I call them superheroes because they go out every single day and they put their lives on the line and they don't ask for much. So yes, I think we have a lot of superheroes within what we do.
I think you're right. Every day we ask our police officers to go out on the street and run towards danger. They go towards the gunfire, towards the violence, towards those acts that put other people's lives in jeopardy. And they do it in cities and towns all across America. I think that we do have superheroes. But I also think that there's a conversation taking place in the United States, in small towns and in major cities, about what the role of law enforcement is. What role should police officers be playing? Are they helping? Are they hurting? Are they superheroes? Or are they villains? Can you be both?
It's interesting. You know, I'm a big fan of Marvel movies, and they have the movies about the superheroes, and they have the protagonists, and they come and save the day. The hero saves the day. But there's an interesting dynamic that they also do in these movies today. They have a duality that's going on. Not only the superhero inside one person, but the antagonist too. So they have the audience questioning, is a superhero all the time? Now, this is just an analogy. What I'm really trying to get to is the fact that I think in some communities, police officers are superheroes. Then in other communities, we're seen as villains.
I think that it's not just at the community level. I think officers struggle with their own identity. They know that they play the role of superhero, but they know that they also play the role of villain in some communities. The question that we have to ask ourselves, look, we know that there are bad apples in every profession, and there are certainly bad apples in law enforcement. There are officers who have used inappropriate levels of force. There are officers who have arrested people when they shouldn't have. There are officers who have disgraced the integrity of the badge and the pride that many serve with. But are the actions of those few enough? I want to take you back to my city, Baltimore. In the mid-2000s, in my city, we arrested 100,000 people in a year. In a city of 650,000, we arrested 100,000 people. Think about that number. 100,000 lives who changed in an instant because of what we did. 100,000 people who had to face the ramifications of those arrests. And it wasn't just those people that we impacted. It was their friends, their family, their coworkers, the people that they played sports with, the people that they prayed with. We changed their lives. And an entire city begins to take on the identity that police officers are villains. A decade later, we saw that bear out in the violence and the destruction of the Freddie Gray riots. We play a role in that. But I don't just blame the police officers, and I don't blame society and the demands of society. There's something else at work here, and I think the real villain here is time. Time is this abstract, artificial construct that we put around policing. And time has a real impact on how officers do their job. We know that time equals motion, and motion equals change. And our change impacts real lives.
100,000 people. It's 100,000 dreams, aspirations, hopes, based on trying to solve a problem that is very complex, like the community that I grew up in. You know, it's very interesting. As I grew up to become a chief of police, one of the things as a policymaker I did is I'd encourage those young officers to go out there, get to that call, go to the next one, get to that call, go to the next one, get to that call. Because we thought we were doing the right things and trying to be efficient and move quickly and to solve the problems within the community. But because we pushed these young officers to go so fast, so quickly, sometimes they fell short. Sometimes they fell short because they didn't have the time to deal with the complexities of these communities, of these neighborhoods that I grew up in and that Eric worked in. We fell short because we relied on strategies that have been around for 100 years. And what I mean by that is I go back and I think in my mind, when I was in college and when we were thinking about how factory work took place, time studies, Elton Mayo, and things along those lines. I remember looking at and studying about how you made the Model T and the Model A, and you were on this belt, and you started to time and check how long it took to put on a door, to put on a steering wheel, to put on the hood, to get it through to be as more efficient as you possibly could be. But we're not building Model Ts. We're not building Model As. We're making decisions on human life. We're making decisions on lives of people that count on us as those superheroes like I did when I was a child. We don't have time to play games with time.
We know that time metrics and time studies became the driving force in law enforcement as early as the 1920s, more than a century ago. We started to measure the efficacy and efficiency of policing through time. How fast an officer got to a call, how quickly they dealt with that call, how quickly they cleared that call to get back into service and get to the next call. But what was forgotten in there is that we're dealing with people. And I want to give you an example. In today's day and age, when a call is received for drug dealing, the officer gets that call. Their job is to get to that call as quickly as possible, find the drug dealer, arrest them, and put them into jail so they can get back out on the street to answer that next call. But what's lost in there are the root causes of crime that plague our cities in the first place. That officer who's going out to that call never has the chance to stop and look at the societal reasons that that person is there, the real impact that these root causes are having on crime in our country. And so the officer doesn't take the time to think about why is that person standing here? What are the root causes, the historical racism and segregation that exist? The lack of education, the lack of clean water, nutrition, healthy, clean neighborhoods. All of these underlying factors that we know directly link into crime. The officer who is a part of that community, a fabric, a very important part of that community, never has the chance to look at the real reasons they're doing what they're doing. It's not the officer's fault. It's not society's fault. It's just that time doesn't allow for it.
With the things that we're talking about, Eric, I think we're talking about changing our culture. Because this is not a time of the Industrial Revolution. We need to question why over the last 100 years we're focused on efficiency and time. Those many things that you just shared, and all the complexities in these communities, we need to give the opportunity for these young officers to slow down. We need to give them the education to deal with issues that may be a little bit beyond them, so they understand that they can call in other people that have other expertise to deal with issues of mental illness or homelessness or some of the poverty issues that we deal with on a regular basis. And so we have to start questioning our culture. We have to have the courage to look and to be able to take a very deep, authentic look at who we are and what we do and what we should be doing. Now, some of the traditionalists in policing may say, nothing's broken, so why should we change it? I would say to them, take from my experience of living through the Rodney King riots in the 1990s, living through the Measurely riots in Oakland, and then living through the riots of Freddie Gray in Baltimore in a 33-year career. If you're not paying attention, I would submit to you that society is saying we need to change. Society is saying that we need to have the courage, the intestinal fortitude to take a look and say we need to shift and change because we don't have time to waste. Lives are being impacted. Decisions are being made. And it's not always the fault of that young officer that's out there. So we have to take a look at the system. We have to ask the hard questions because we have a moral imperative, because we are the guardians of the American Constitution, and people count on us. We are those superheroes that those kids like I grew up in South Central LA count on. Now is the time. Thank you.